Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Voices in My Head, the podcast where Mr. Basil talks about all kinds of stuff about audiobooks and all that. And he has a very exciting guest today, Mr. John Mclain of political and movie fame, if I'm not mistaken. So, Mr. Basil, get on with the show.
Howdy, folks, and welcome back to another episode of Voices in My Head, the podcast where we talk about audiobooks, audiobook narration, producing, publishing, whatever. And then whatever comes to mind on top of that may have nothing to do with any of those topics. And we're here online today with John Mclain, the famous cop who stormed the tower and fought against those guys. Wait, was that you, John?
I'm a cop on the edge. No, it's not. In fact, I would be a lot better off financially if it was. But it never hurts to have that association. It's it's sort of cool actually. So yeah, that was me.
When people ask you about that, you just say, "Oh, I don't want to talk about it."
Yeah, well, yeah, depends on my mood.
Then they'll think, "Oh, he must have PTSD after running on broken glass and shooting all those guys." So the truth of the matter is, though, John is a two-time Audio Award nominated narrator who has a slew of excellent titles, over 165, 170, something like that.
My next one will be 175. My next track, yeah. So
you've been cranking along. Now, when did you get started in audiobooks, John?
I got started kind of officially in 2011, and I got my first book deal that year. And the book came out in 2012, so kind of 2011 and a half.
Wow.
I trained in 2011.
Now, what did you do before audiobooks?
Oh, man, Basil, I've done a little bit of everything. But my main career, I was in radio broadcasting for almost 20 years, different markets, and wound up doing mornings in Dallas and just wasn't having fun with it anymore. And I actually stumbled backwards into acting. I was doing a show, and I got invited to do a show because I could sing. And I did Music Man in 2008, and I'd never been on a stage, never thought, if you had asked me then, are you an actor? I would have been like, no, I don't know the first thing about it. And as it turned out, I had a gift for it. I fell in love with it. I caught the bug, started doing theater. And then when my radio career ended, I learned about voiceover. And then I met a guy named Pat Fraley one year in Los Angeles, and he said, have you ever thought about doing audiobooks? And I thought, well, I've heard of audiobooks, but no, I haven't. And so he had me read, and here we are.
Wow, just one little step and bam.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Magic Kingdom. Now, other than Pat, what other training did you take to
I've studied with Scott Brick and Pat together and individually. I've also studied with Paul Rubin, who's a genius, and lots of other people along the way that have just been encouraged me, and as a narrator yourself, that you pick up nuggets of wisdom just by listening to talented people, and you think, wow, what a choice, or I love that character, or I would have never chosen that, but I'm blown away, and you kind of file those away. Right. And so yeah, I've kind of studied. I kind of try to study all the time if I can, but formally, Pat and Scott and Paul have been my main coaches.
And those are three of the best, if not the best, that are out there. I mean,
I love them. I love all three of them. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. They are awesome guys. Awesome guys. So you did radio. You said you did radio morning show. Was this mostly like the traffic show or the morning music show or talk show comedy stuff? Or
I did a little bit of everything. When I I did country and western, of course, when I started in Oklahoma, and made my way and actually ended my career at a contemporary Christian station in Dallas, Fort Worth, and was doing mornings. And I had 3 or 4 different titles and was doing, and it was great. It was nice, but radio started moving away from personality radio, which is kind of how I was brought up, and it was more about, here's your stack of cards to read today. And it just wasn't getting my creative juices flowing. I just wasn't enjoying it anymore. So I started kind of looking for a creative outlet, and lo and behold, theater came into my life totally unexpectedly. It was kind of like friend of a friend, and boy, I stepped under those lights, and I just fell in love. I got the bug, and I still perform on the stage from time to time whenever I have time. So it's kind of, that's what really got me into voice acting and then audiobook narration.
So how would you compare your past experiences with radio in particular versus audiobook narration today? Because, I mean, they're all voice work, right?
Right, right. That's a great question, and it was something that I learned over many years. To today, I can say that there's a few things in common, but most of it isn't. I like most recovering DJs. Came into voiceover thinking, well, I got this whipped. I've been reading commercials for a long time, and what I found was that it's a completely different craft. It's acting first. And so I learned, I went through the trenches and learned that, you're having a voice is a wonderful tool, but it's one tool in a big toolkit that you use. And so it served me well. I mean, I bring a lot of things from my broadcasting career, especially my early career when I was really personality driven, because I used to do character bits and stuff when I had time, and it was fun. And so it's helped. But at the same time, I think as a performer today, I've developed kind of past where I wanted to develop as a broadcasting personality. And part of it's kind of what you alluded to earlier about, now we can edit. Well, then you couldn't. I think there's a tremendous freedom knowing that, we can fix it in post, or we can go back and do another take, or we can read that chapter again if we want to make a different choice, or if we stunk it up or whatever. So I find it very freeing as a performer to be able to do that.
Right, right. Well, that's pretty cool. So you're originally from Oklahoma. Is
Yes.
that correct? Whereabouts
That's
in Oklahoma?
I grew up in a town called Edmond, which is just north of Oklahoma City. It's now a large town, but when I was a kid, it was dirt roads and quite small. But it's exploded. It's one of the major suburbs on the north side of Oklahoma City. So I grew up there out in rural. I had a rural childhood and grew up, with rolling hills and used to camp in the back pasture, and we had cows everywhere and horses. It was great.
Oh, wow. When you were growing up out there and looking up at the stars and hopefully not laying down in the cow patties, did you imagine yourself at any point doing what you do today?
I think maybe I did. I don't know. I can remember my grandmother, before she passed away, she used to talk about how I kind of had a performer in me. And apparently, and I really don't recall this, but apparently at family holidays, I used to tell stories that were completely made up.
Oh, wow.
And I guess I was one of those kids that kind of did perform for the family. I don't really remember doing it intentionally, but maybe so. I mean, maybe that was part of my chemistry all along, and I was afraid to develop it, or I didn't have a chance to develop it until I did.
You're just like an innate storyteller.
Yeah, I think so, and I think part of that comes from the rural idea. Where it's kind of a heritage of storytelling and passing things along. We had our grandparents lived next door. We had a long tradition of a lot of meals together and holidays together, and so there were stories about the good old days, and so maybe that did feed into that to a degree.
It all kind of rubs off, especially if you're in a storytelling family. Things
Sure.
rub off, and you get used to that kind of format of things.
Yeah.
Genre-wise, audiobook-wise, do you have a preferred genre, something you really enjoy doing more than other things?
I do. I didn't used to, but now that I've done a few, I really enjoy broadly mystery, suspense, thriller, but more drilled in, I found that I really enjoy police drama, crime drama. I just really, for some reason, connect with that material. I don't know why. I really like playing villains. Villains are a hoot. So, and probably that's why, because there's usually great villains written in that type of material. And I like nonfiction, and I didn't think that I would, but certain topics of nonfiction really, really get me going, and I really enjoy that. So those would be my two main ones. I do a lot of faith-based material, which I love for a host of other reasons, and so I really enjoy that type of material as well. But those are my main ones.
The two books that you got narrated, or that you got nominated for an Audie, what was it like when you got that letter that said you've been nominated?
Well, the first one was in 2012, and the story, that was actually my very first title.
Wow.
And so, yeah, my very first title got nominated, and my reaction at first was disbelief. You got the email, and I was just casually going, "Oh, the Audie Awards are out today," and I was thumbing, scrolling through, and I saw the title. I thought, I did that book, and then I saw my name, and I just freaked out. I mean, I got in touch with the publisher, and I said, I can't believe this. And they said, well, we thought it was really good, and they put it up. It was one of those situations, Basil, where I think it was the book was so well written. I mean, it was literary. I think Audiophile's review described it as a literary experience. This author was just magnificent, and so it was a privilege to get that, especially as my rookie book.
Right. Yeah.
So, but yeah, I was blown away, and I'm still blown away. There's nothing more gratifying than having someone tell you, you know what, you did a good job on this one. There's something very special about that, and I never take it for granted.
Oh yeah, that is excellent. I think I would faint, especially if it had been my first book. Man, that is not
Uh,
common.
yeah, it was pretty exciting, and it was a lot of people were surprised. No one was more surprised than me. I can promise you that.
That kind of set the bar high for you for your follow-on books after that.
Yeah, I looked at it two different ways. One of my ways is kind of like if you win the World Series, then anything less next year, then you failed. So I thought, boy, now if I don't get nominated, then I'm going to feel like I'm not doing good work anymore. And a lot of my peers and mentors, talked me out of that kind of thinking and said, no, you have to understand as a performer, that you'll destroy yourself thinking that way. So keep doing what you're doing, keep honing the craft, keep up with your education, and surround yourself with good, talented people that can feed into you positive things. So the way I chose to look at it is really, as much as my performance, it was casting. The casting people found the right material for me as they got to know my personal style. That's huge.
Right.
And the other thing is my writing partner, as Pat Fraley would say. You have a good writing partner, the author. It's easy to put out a good performance because the words on the page are so beautiful and so easily acted.
Right.
So I really give a lot of credit to casting. Both of my nominations are books that were almost custom written for me to narrate, and I think that it takes a skilled casting person to make those decisions. So I give them a lot of credit, along, of course, with the amazing work of the authors.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Is there a book that you've read in your life or heard of or read a summary of that you just want to narrate or wish you could have narrated it, even if it's narrated by someone else? Is there a book like that out there that you're just like, man, I wish I was the voice of this book?
Yeah, I can't think of any titles offhand, but there's some. I read a lot of westerns growing up because my grandfather was into Louis L'Amour, Zane Grey,
Oh yeah.
and the old classics. And I always dreamed of doing that. And in fact, I've done some Zane Grey, and I've done a little bit of L'Amour. I'd like to do more.
Hmm.
I would say that, as growing up, when I would read those books, they really fired my imagination. And I would probably say that some of the great westerns that I've read, I would love
Hmm.
to have a chance to bring to life. That would probably be my
I can
choice.
see that. I grew up addicted to Louis L'Amour. That was the
Yeah,
only book my stepdad actually I ever saw him read. The only thing actually I think I ever saw him read, other than maybe the Sunday paper. And
right.
but I would have loved to do the Sackett's
Oh
stories
yeah,
for Louis L'Amour. I just was totally in love with those books. And
absolutely.
but yeah, but it is what it is, and someone else got that gig long before I came along. So. Well, that's pretty cool. So you live in Arizona now. What brought you to Arizona from Oklahoma?
My wife's job, actually, I came to Arizona from Dallas, Fort Worth. We lived there for 12 years. And after we left Oklahoma, my wife is an executive at an insurance company. So we followed her job around the country. And I think this will probably be our last move. She's kind of at a point now where we don't have to move if we don't want to, which is kind of nice because moving's a pain. For a while, we were moving every 5 years. So, but it's nice to kind of be established here. So, but yeah, that we followed her job out here. And at the time, I was transitioning into a new career. And it's kind of funny when we came to Arizona, I was thinking, well, I'm going to have to get a job in radio out there because that's what I do. And I thought, I don't know any program directors in the market. I really don't know much about the market. And I told Jan, I said, it's going to take me a year just to network my way into getting an interview out here. And I said, and I'm not really that excited about it. And that's when we decided, you know what, let's be bold and start something new. And that's kind of what led me into exploring voice acting as a profession.
Nice. Now I see your booth back behind you there. That's kind of, at least
Yeah,
from this perspective, that's a pretty spiffy looking space you got there.
yeah, it's from the vocalbooth.com folks. And it's great. It's 3x6. And I've done, I guess, let me think, all but probably 10 of my titles from that booth.
Hmm.
Seen a lot of action. but it's great. It's got a little baffled vending system which works pretty well. Some of my publishers don't like it, so I don't always use it, which can be a problem in the Arizona summer. But
Yeah, that's what my next question was going to be. Does it
yeah,
stay cool or does it bake you in there?
it stays cool to a degree. My friend Scott Brick is always telling me I should take more breaks anyway. He's always on me about doing sessions that are too long. So, and he's right. So I have a tendency when I get on a roll not to want to quit, and then the performance goes south. But all that to say, if I come out and let it air out, it's okay. But yeah, it isolates very well. Pretty much everything except leaf blowers. Which nothing can stop leaf blowers except cinder blocks, I guess. But
Yeah, cinder blocks thrown at the person operating the leaf.
right, yes, exactly. That's the most effective way.
So you've done 175 titles as of now.
Yep.
Where do you see your career going in the next 10 years? Where would you like to be at that point?
Boy, I was thinking about that just the other day, and I don't remember why, but I was thinking about kind of 5-year, 10-year down the road, and kind of what I thought about is I'm going to do this as long as I enjoy doing it, because here's the thing, as you know, this audiobook narration thing is a labor of love. It really is. And lots of people told me, unless you're already famous, you're probably not going to get rich doing this. So you got to love it. You've got to love this because you're going to be spending a lot of time doing it.
Oh, yeah.
And so I kind of concluded that I'm going to keep doing this as long as A, I still love doing it, and B, as long as other people love me doing it. As long as I'm getting, as long as I keep getting hired and cast for projects and I'm enjoying it, then I'll do it. I enjoy it. And of course, as long as my voice holds out, which hope and pray that will last into my golden years. So.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I think right now I'm enjoying it, and the cool thing is the more experienced I get, the better material I'm being cast in, so it's even more fun. I'm more skilled, so it's more fun. So yeah, I think in the next 10 years, my next milestone, I guess, is 200 titles. So I probably need to set a goal date for that and chunk off the next 25 and see where it leads.
There you go. And then you could be like Sean Pratt, knocking out 52 books a year.
Oh yeah,
Year after year. Man, how does that guy do it and still have all of his hair? So
Iron Man, yeah.
Oh, no kidding. You've got a lot of thriller titles out there, as well as nonfiction titles, and a bunch of faith-based titles. How do you ever run into a situation where you're like, that's a title that I don't think is going to fit with me, or I don't want to do that? How do you approach that with a publisher, with a producer?
Great question. That's happened a couple of times to me, and the thing that's so wonderful about this community, about this industry, is that the publishers are so understanding about, and they understand not only that they want you to feel good about the project, they understand that if you don't, the performance is going to suffer. So what I do is I'm just open and honest with them, and some of my newer clients that don't know me personally quite as well as some of the ones I've been working with for years, they'll send me a project that's outside of my parameters, if you will. And I'll just say, look, I thank you for the offer, but this is really not a project that I can take on for reason A, B, or C. And they're always so gracious. And a lot of times they'll start apologizing, say, oh, I'm so sorry. I was like, no, you didn't offend me. This is just, so really I always encourage narrators, just be open and honest. That's what a relationship's all about, and just be open and honest. And the more they get to know you, the better the casting will be and the better your performances will be.
Have you ever run into a title where you didn't discover it wasn't a good fit until halfway through?
Yeah, a few times. As there are times when you're so busy that your prep is not what, before you sign the deal is not what you probably it should have been. And that, that's life, it's business. And there are a few projects out there that looking back, I kind of wish I wouldn't have done, but, because but at the same time, you live and you learn and right. As you move forward. But yeah, I've never had an issue with any publisher where they're always very happy to know about, these are the things that I just don't do, that for whatever reasons, for moral reasons or for whatever, this is material that I'm not interested in doing. And they're always very gracious about it.
Excellent. Do you have a favorite title that you've narrated? I know it's hard to pick when you got 165 or 175 children, but do you have a favorite?
I do actually. It's actually my nominated title for this year. It's a book by Roger Thompson called "We Stood Upon Stars," and I remember when I did the book. The book took me 3 or 4 days longer than I'd scheduled because it was so moving that I was literally weeping, and I had to take because it was very deeply touching, and I told the publisher, I'm going to bring it in on time, but it's not going to be as early as I was expecting. And I told her, I said, this is probably the best book I've ever read. Maybe even ever, but certainly the best I've ever narrated in terms of my personal love for the material.
Wow.
And so that's why, getting nominated for that one was so gratifying because I really felt like that this book spoke to me in a way where I really inhabited the author and in a way that I always strive to, but seldom quite get there. But in this case, this book is one of the best books I've ever read, certainly, and I think my favorite one I've ever narrated.
That is awesome. To be able to connect like that with the material that you're working with it's just amazing. It's like it becomes part of you.
Yes, very much. It affected me deeply and in a positive way. It was just it's a beautiful book.
That is very cool. That is very cool. The living in Arizona, and you live in Phoenix, correct?
Yeah, just north of Phoenix, yeah.
Wow, so right there in the big city. My wife and son visited there a couple of years ago for a big national swim meet that they were going to. I've never been there myself, but they drove around there and they said, wow, it's a beautiful place, but man, is it hot. I think they were there in June. And so coming from Alaska, well, my wife said, I want to go someplace warm. Then she went there, and when she came back, she was like, okay, I want to go someplace not that warm.
Right, so, lukewarm.
Air conditioning bills must be expensive down there.
Yeah, they can be. My home is 2 levels, and I'm actually upstairs right now. My studio is upstairs, and so it takes quite a bit to cool it up here. But our electric companies here have peak hours because of the energy need, and the desert is quite high in the summer. So typically they have ways where you can manage your energy use and make it a little more affordable. So like we have to do laundry at certain hours. We run the pool pump at night, things like that to help the grid, take the pressure off the grid, and then they reward you for that at the end of the month.
That's awesome. Do your recording late at night when it's cool so that then you get paid extra? It's like getting an extra stipend on your...
Right, yeah, that's one way to look at it.
Now, you came in to professional audiobook narrating about the same time I did. I came in 2010. You came in, you said in 11.
Yep.
Have you done a lot with the ACX stuff out there?
I did in the beginning. I did a lot of the 7-year royalty contracts. I did I think maybe 8 or 9 of them in the beginning, and in fact I was on ACX pretty early on, and really kind of got to know it pretty well in its early stages. I remember the first APAC I went to in New York. I ended up having a conversation with one of the gentlemen from Audible that was kind of in charge of getting that thing up and running and was asking about feedback from narrators. And I said, well, I'm new. I don't really have any feedback, but I'm excited about the tool. So I did a few on ACX. And I've actually, in the past couple of years, had a couple authors approach me directly. I don't know how they found me. I guess they Googled me or whatever. And said, hey, I like your demos. Would you mind reading my book? And they were independent, self-published authors, and I said, yeah, send me a copy, and I'll thumb through it. And I was able. The cool thing about ACX is, and I've shared this with other narrators, is you can kind of use ACX as a tool to offer an author a kind of a cradle-to-grave solution to get them into the audiobook market if they don't have a publisher representing them. And I've had a couple authors that got very excited when I told them, hey, there's this tool, and I'd be happy to shepherd you all the way through it using ACX as the tool. So I'm a fan of ACX. I think they do a lot of good things and really help narrators and authors connect in some cases, and smaller publishers.
Can you describe your technical layout in your booth?
Yes, I have one thing that I wanted in my booth when I kind of made my design is I wanted no computers in there. So what I have is, you can see behind me I have a window, and I can see both of my monitors. I can see my Pro Tools monitor and my other Mac, and I operate with 2 iPads. I read from one. My other iPad stays in there all the time, and I use it as a wireless transport control. So the only computers are 2 iPads in there. So it's nice because it helps keep things nice and quiet. I don't have to worry about fan noise and so forth.
Right.
And I can control Pro Tools through my wireless transport through my small iPad that I have in there. So I've got a Neumann microphone, TLM 103, that I read from. Earlier in my career, I used a Audio Technica 4040, which is a great mic. I still have it. It's my backup now. And I use Glyph external drives to hold my audio, and they perform very well. I have a Focusrite Mic Pre that I use, and it just I run the cords out and into the room, and it does great. That's pretty much it.
That's a pretty nice, simple layout there. And you said you're a Mac guy, so I can't say anything about that because I know nothing about Macs. So I'll assume that that's a good thing.
It works for me. It's kind of like pickup trucks. You have Ford guys and Dodge guys and Chevy guys. You've got Mac guys and Windows guys.
Yep.
And but I got addicted to Macs in broadcasting because that's what they had, and that's what I learned. The funny thing is, I saw a Windows computer at my accountant's office recently, and I thought, man, I don't think I could use this. It's changed so much since when I think the last time I used a Windows machine, I was in college. So I mean, it's been a long time.
Like Windows 3.1.
Yeah, I think so, or something. Yeah,
version.
Yeah, totally different now. But yeah, I've always been a Mac guy just because I understand it.
For new people that are out there, for new narrators coming into this, what would you tell them to expect as far as the real life? I mean, people picture being an audiobook narrator as you're reading a book in front of a microphone, and you see those clips of the voice actors from Hollywood just kind of worshiping the microphone, and it looks so cool. What would you tell a new narrator is the real life of being a narrator?
The real life of being a narrator is taking a very good care of your voice. You drink a lot of herbal tea, whether you like it or not. You have the first and foremost thing is you have to love books. You have to love to read. You have to love. I always tell people that when I ask people when they say, "Do you think I could do this?" One of the questions I ask them, I says, "Okay, when you sit down with a new novel that you just got and you're getting ready to dig in, when you read it to yourself, do you hear voices? Like as you get to know characters as they're introduced, do you hear voices? Do you hear the river rushing by in the scene where the killer is? I mean, do you hear that?" And if they say yes, then there's an actor inside them somewhere. And because that's really what it is, your storytelling. And so I tell them, in addition to the physical endurance, which is a whole different kettle of fish, if you're going to enjoy this, and you better enjoy it because you're going to be in there a lot, you've got to love story. You've got to love, whether it's fiction, nonfiction, or both, you must love story. If you don't, then it's going to become a job and it's going to wear you down. So that to me is the first and foremost. Then once you say, yeah, I love story, then you got to figure out if you've got the endurance to do it, both vocally and mentally, emotionally, and all of that. And that's a whole discussion.
Right. That's a good point. I hadn't thought about it that way. I thought about the physical endurance part of it. But yeah, you really do have to love stories in general, not just a story, but the whole thing, the whole concept of it. That's pretty wise. I'm going to have to remember that and maybe put it on a little sticky note on my desk or something. I like that saying.
I remember one thing Pat Fraley told me years ago that's just stuck in my head. He said, let me describe to you, I'm paraphrasing him, but he said, let me describe to you the challenge you're facing as an audiobook narrator. And he said, this is the best way I can think to describe it. He said, no one on planet Earth can spend 12 hours in a cab with Al Pacino. So what chance do you have? He said, that's the challenge. You're asking someone in their busy life to take 10, 12, 14 hours out of a number of days to listen to you act a play where you're playing every character and every setting. He said, that is the challenge. And he says, I'm just telling you this to know that you're going to have to take this seriously if you're going to succeed at it. And I remember thinking, wow, this is work. And it really kind of set the stage for me to dig in and study and learn and kind of become a sponge, knowing that this is more than just, sitting down at the campfire telling a story, although at its base, that's kind of what it is. But, if you're going to be able to hold someone's attention as opposed to, well, this book's pretty good, but I've got better things to do, and toss it aside, to hold them to that last CD or now the last file or what have you, you've really got to do your homework and be prepared to tell a story at the very best of your ability.
That's true. Very good. Very good. All the way through. Wow. Okay, so I've got, as you may know, I've got some leprechauns that live in the house with me. They live in my basement or my crawl space, but they've converted it to a full-size basement.
I heard a rumor to that end. Yes.
They're interesting fellows, but they get a little talkative, and they insist on being part of this show every week. So I'm going to bring them in, if you don't mind. Here they come.
Please do.
Boys, you ready to come up? Oh, Mr. Basil. Oh, who's that? That's John Mclain. That's not Ann Richardson? No, that was earlier this week. Hi, Mr. Mclain. Sorry to say you're not pretty as Ann Richardson, but you're pretty for a guy. How's that?
I'll take that. I'll take that. And with many thanks.
You're welcome. You're very welcome. Hi. Anyway, my name is Feely, and I am the eldest of the leprechauns that live in Basil's basement. And this is my brother, Neely. He's the next oldest brother. Say hello, Neely. Hello, Neely. No, say hello to John, Neely. Hello to John, Neely. Anyway, the next brother is Buffin. Buffin is the third brother. Not that he's a turd. He's just the turd. The three. I can never get this word right in American. Anyway, he's the third brother. And then here's Bertold. Say hello, Bertold. Hello. Bertold is the youngest brother. He's the smart one. Hello. Well, I'm not that much smarter. Well, you do speak like 27 languages. But I failed on number 28. Anyway, we have some questions for you.
Fire
Number
away.
one, Mr. John Mclain, what's it like to be a United States Senator?
Well, it's exhausting. It's lucrative. It's you meet interesting people. And in fact, as an aside, I actually sat behind him on a plane one time, the real one, coming back from New York City.
Wait a minute. You sat behind yourself?
I sat behind myself and on a plane from JFK to Phoenix one time. I was coming home from the Audis from APAC, and there he was sitting right in front of me. It was a funny moment.
Very interesting. That must have been very disconcerting to look forward and see the back of your own head.
It was. I have a picture of my scalp, in fact, somewhere in my archives.
That is interesting. Feely, I have something to say here. What do you got to say, Bertold? I think you added an L to the senator's name. What are you talking about? This is John Mclain, not John McCain. Oh, this is the guy that ran up that tower and shot all those people. Whoa! We watch that movie every Christmas.
It's a very popular my mother's favorite Christmas movie.
And you don't even have the scars to show for it. You
No.
like a miracle man.
I don't have the scars to show for it, and I recovered quite well from the ordeal at Nakatomi Plaza.
That's good. That means that your wife is probably quite appreciative that she doesn't have to scratch your scars and stuff or whatever
Yes.
that scary people do. We don't have scars. We're leprechauns, and we heal stuff. Anyway, we did not come here to talk to you about those things, although they were interesting nonetheless. So, Buffin, tell him what we came here to talk about. We came here to ask you some questions based on a scenario that we made up when we walked in. Is that what I'm supposed to say, Feely? Yes, that's what you're supposed to say. Okay, Neely, tell him the rest. Okay, here's your scenario. You are in the Great Gobi Desert that's the one in China, right? Yeah, that's the one in China. You're in the Great Gobi Desert, and you meet up with Genghis Khan's great grandson, who looks and acts exactly like him and rides a horse and all that stuff too. And he says, John Mclain, you are the prophesied one who should come with us and rule the world in the name of Genghis Khan again. What would you do?
What would I do? Oh boy, I don't know that I'd want to rule the world, guys. I don't think I'm equipped. I have a hard enough time ruling my business, so I don't. I would probably see what the pay was like, because that might sway me. But I would be intimidated by such an offer. I
Well,
really
all
would.
you got to do, your pay is whatever you take from the people. So your pay potential is unlimited if you're taking from peopleish kind of personality.
Oh, so it's like the government here.
Yeah, basically you'd be like a congressman or something,
Oh, and
just on a
that
horse with a
case,
rifle. They
I
used to
would.
use bows and arrows, but we've graduated past bows and arrows. Although you can still use it if you want, you just got to get dangerously close. That's all.
I think in that case, knowing all that, I would follow them and at least sit in for the meeting.
There you go. That's a good option. Sitting in for the meeting, take the notes, go home with the PowerPoint, and you can say, "Hey, look, I was there. I met the guy, and I lived."
Right,
There you go.
right.
Living is not underrated. I will say that. Living is a very popular thing amongst
I'm a
most
fan.
people.
Yeah, yeah, I'm a fan.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Have you ever been to a foreign country?
I have. I have been to many foreign countries, in fact,
Ooh, wow.
many to me. But yeah, I've been to Europe. So I've been. Let's see. Let me think real quickly. I've been to Great Britain, been to Austria, Germany. I've been to Liechtenstein. I've been to Italy. I've been to Switzerland, Spain, and and Mexico. Been to
Ah,
Mexico.
you've been around, but I noticed one missing.
Yeah, I haven't been to Ireland yet.
Well, you got to get there. It's nice, it's green, and it's typically raining. But everything is still nice about it. It's
I
an,
would love to go to Ireland, actually.
it's like the polar opposite of Arizona.
Yeah, yeah, that's probably true because it's not green here.
Yeah, Ireland's definitely green, and there's no snakes, thanks to St. Patrick. Well, actually, there were no snakes before him either, but there's still no snakes, thanks to him, maybe. So,
That's good. That's
except
yeah.
for you forgot about our cousin Reginald. He has a snake. Oh yeah, that's right. He has like the only snake in Ireland. It's his pet. What's that big one called? Not a barracuda. It's the big, thick, gigantic python.
Oh yeah.
The programming language. He has one of those that he keeps in his bathtub, which is why our cousin Reginald stinks a lot because he's only got one bathroom. So
Oh.
he never showers because that snake will eat him, I think. Anyway, you got to get there sometime, and maybe we'll meet together and go out to a pub together and have mincemeat pie and ale and stuff. And
That sounds lovely.
I think you would like it. I know I would like it because I like it all the time. Okay, boys, do you have any other questions for Mr. Mclain here? Not that we can make up at the last second. Not anymore. We've made up all the stuff we can make up for right now. Okay, so tell him goodbye. Goodbye, Mr. Mclain. Goodbye, Mr. Mclain. Goodbye, Mr. Mclain. Goodbye, Mr. Mclain.
Goodbye, fellas. It was been lovely chatting with you.
Likewise to you and us too. Now let's go inside, boys. Okay, there you go. Don't forget to clean up the mess you guys made in the kitchen. Oh, we always clean up. Yeah, well, don't forget. Okay. Well, thank you very much for enduring the leprechauns.
Those are some interesting roommates.
They can keep me up at night, to say the least. Well, thank you very much for joining me on the show here, John. It's been a pleasure talking to you, a pleasure to get to know you in person a little bit, even though it's, distance digitally. But it's been a pleasure. It's been great talking to you.
Likewise, Basil. A real pleasure. Thanks for having me on, and I look forward to shaking your hand again in New York here in a few weeks.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Gerald the Troll, and that was the end of the show. Actually, that is the end of the show. I don't know why the picture was topsy-downsy instead of sidesy like normal. There was apparently some kind of technical difficulty.
Gerald, why do you call it topsy-downsy and sidesy?
Oh, well, that's because that's the way it looked. It was sidesy normally, but this time it was upsy-downsy.
Oh, yeah, but it was kind of cocked off to the side, too, so maybe it was more like upsy-sidesy-downsy-sidesy.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense. I guess that's why you're the smart one, Mr. Philly. Thank you for listening to the show and also watching it if you happen to be watching it. And have a wonderful day. This show is copyright 2019 by Basil Sands and Sandman Production Studios of Alaska and all that stuff. So, have a good day.